Come on, man. Why I even got to intro this? Y'all hear the sample? Who flips this? Look, man, Supreme Blientele, iconic album. So iconic, got 3 different names: Supreme Blientele, Chris Benoit, and God is the Greatest. All iconic names. This album don't get as much appreciation I think it should for how it pushed forward this subgenre of hip-hop. You finna go song by song? Let's get to it.
Even the FBI said the squad was violent. They labeled us young, wild, and homicidal. Missing fathers, he never got his guidance. Got in the game and never got to get his input when I decided.
Man, he is talking with a 4-syllable rhyme scheme too.
Depending what I'm paying, I could send him when you land. Body snatcher jumping out the rental with it in his hand. Had to bring it back in bells, but distributing in grams. Conversations in the cell where most criminals advance. Let's backtrack.
I like that line. Conversation to sell how most criminals advance. They say jail is basically crime school.
Said it by a nigga, I served twice. He got picked up, then he bitched up like he was about to serve life.
More storytelling.
I turned dope to dollars.
He in his bag.
That straight facts, blood on the money when they got paid back. Take Belichick's playbook and still won't be the Patriots. Y'all shot, I'm out your league.
That's a tough line. They still in my flow, but take Belichick playbook, they still won't be the Patriots.
A long shot. My team gave the city smoke like cigar shots. Damn.
You're not supposed to follow it up with no basic line like that, though.
Yeah, my man, what's a dom? God, say my name and wake these niggas up like alarm clock.
Despite them last 2 punches, the alarm clock and the cigar shot line, that was a sick verse. The storytelling is on one. He sounds menacing, hungry, good rhyme schemes. That's how you open up an album.
Pull his razor out on sight and come across you. Adrenaline rush, make him do it with no remorse too. You would do it too, but you know how much it would cost you. We ain't got a corkscrew, fuck it, just push the cork through. Yeah.
Does that even work? You can open up a wine bottle like that?
I rolled them backs, I sold them packs. Started with the girl, they never should've showed him smacks. Made it
I like this flow right here.
Even hold him back.
Jada had a pretty straightforward verse there, but dog, he sound right at home over this sample.
Advisory ball crystals, Presto's off white. First stove at the all-bright.
All luxury talk.
Niggas like
not
red
no more.
like that. They seen the porch lights, read the same book, but didn't understand the message. Drop beat.
That read the same book, but they didn't understand the message. Sound a lot like Benny's Take Belichick playbook, they still can't be the Patriots line.
I was obsolete. Chanel mask in the robbery.
If a nigga try to rob me in a Chanel mask, they just gonna have to kill me, cause why you robbing me and you wearing Chanel?
The Eiffel on the postcard, peace God, peace God.
Hey, that's a sick opener. That sample is nuts. I think since Westside Gunn came into the game, he's had really unique production, but I think this takes it a step further. He's always had that minimalist production, and other rappers like a Rock Marcy, a Sean Price was rapping on what I thought was similar production. But up until this point in time, this would have been a really unique minimalist beat to rap over. It's a different move to go with somebody else open up your own album, but I think for Westside Gunn, that's more him acknowledging his strengths. I don't think it's a surprise that the best Westside Gunn albums that he's had in his entire career have been the ones that had a lot of features. So for him to open an album with Benny the Butcher, to me, that seems like he's embracing his strength as an executive producer and letting his gunner shine. Benny rewarded him because he had a sick verse. He was talking. I think he had the best verse on there. I think Jadakiss sounded pretty good. His rapping as far as rhyme schemes, lyricism, even like the imagery and storytelling was more straightforward compared to the other 2 verses. But it's something about his delivering his voice that just sounds perfect over this beat. I do like the gritty imagery he started his verse with. He got into a pretty good flow like midway through as well. Westside Gunn had a good verse too. His was the second best on here. That luxury talk, the designer brands mixed with the imagery of him standing on the street corners, the prison bars, the gun bars. That's a fire song. This is Dean Malenko.
Hey, yo, pork the laundry lay in front of Guggenheim. I'm selling 2 for 5. Coke swimming, we had to scuba dive. Craig Green gas.
Yo, that opener is so hard. That's like the most Westside Gunnish opener too. The coat swimmer we had, a scuba dive is fire. But then that kind of illustrates the brilliance of Westside Gunn's rap style, where he mixes the luxury with the street talk. And it's not just mixing tools. He creates this fantasy world that's so outlandish. It kind of reminds me of the outlandish violence that Run the Jewels is known for, but his is the outlandish mix of high class and extremely low class. So to pull up in a La Delay in front of the Guggenheim Museum to stand on the block selling hand to hand, that's ridiculous. But that's his lane, that's his world that he puts you in. I like it.
My first Mac at Christie's, pulled the Draco out the Chevy, Dawn shot him Tiffany's.
See what I'm talking about? But Westside Gunn be it Phipps. Phipps Small got metal detectors now, so I might not be that outlandish.
I'm back in 1010s, rockin' chin mints. Chanel Paris don't get embarrassed. The tech in the fridge.
I like the internal rhymes he got right here.
Kitchen, you know who I miss. Bought the whole shelf of baking soda. Whoa,
Brought the whole shelf of baking soda.
give me 2 bricks, stretch it to 5. I'm stretch it to 5, to 5. Whoa.
Dog, that song is like the nigga who's like low-key trashing his job, but everybody like him, so he keep getting promotions. That song is all charisma, good enough rapping. I think it's a banger. The beat is objectively hard. Those off-kilter keys sound good. They got some shimmering sound behind it that I like, and then the drums go hard. I talked about that world of high fashion meets trapping that Westside Gunn painted throughout this verse. The rapping was fine. It was mostly 3-syllable rapping. He did some cool little flows here and there, cool little internal rhyming pockets here and there, but it was mostly just a charismatic delivery. That charisma was even more displayed on the chorus. For one, why do you even have a chorus on a 2-minute song that only has 1 verse? And then the chorus itself is just saying, give me 2 bricks, I'm gonna stretch it to 5. But the way that he sung it is super catchy. And plus, he's stretching 2 to 5. Like, if you give most people 2 bricks, they might stretch it to 3. They might stretch it to 4. But Westside Gunn can stretch it to 5. This is Brutus. It sounds like doing a drive-by out of a Mario Kart.
I showed up with the whole shit, nigga, when my script was biting. Before 20, they put my name in the big indictment. My plug indecisive, same work, different price. That about
Rapid fire 4-syllable rhyme scheme from Benny.
the pop bust in 2010 and I could still hear it. I love my mom, but that hard was my real parents. Let's go. Who run the
That's a grimy lie. Why you doing your moms like that, though?
got the ops names tatted on my trigger
Hey
finger.
yo, bricks in the Louis.
Got the ops name tat on my trigger finger. It's hard. He had a couple of good punches in there.
The niggas that you idolize, I'm least impressed with. Got your bitch on the bus looking like she pregnant. Peru flake got
I got your girl on the bus looking like she pregnant. For one, having your drug mule on a bus, you really got her on a dummy mission, but she got so much bricks wrapped around and she looked like, yeah, that's tough.
your home, low tops, rose drop. 13 games with the nose chop, stone top. My shooter come over.
I like that 2-syllable right there.
3 and 1, 500 burpees, all I knew. First day anyway.
Yo, he got the best prison bars in the game.
I'm about to hit him with that fatal shot. I leave him laying in a vacant lot. Try to take my chain, you just gon' take a shot. I take a block and whip the shit, I scrape the pot.
I like that rhyme scheme that he opened with. He was doing it back to back, so he was using the same 3-syllable. He would say it like 5 or 6 times within 2 bars.
Fuck you and them niggas riding with you. I'm here to terrorize
That's
the
a
game.
4-syllable.
5 on me, I'm Spider Mitchell.
That's a pretty good line, but I've heard enough jersey number caliber of the gun flips.
My young boys eating like they never seen a drought. In my trap, everybody weighing like it's Keenan House. They say my shit
I like
is
that.
album of the year and it ain't even out.
Hey, if he knew what Benny was coming with later that year, he might have kept that line to itself. I don't know if anybody else in Griselda touched Tanner Talk 3 yet.
Better than just a 7 and slice. I'm stepping from the stripe, I'm better than nice.
Oh,
want
I like
your
this
necklace
flow
of
right
your
here.
life, and I ain't telling you twice.
Man, I'm doing this series in chronological order. I'm trying to remember if there's another song with all 3, Benny, Conway, and Westside Gunn on it up to this point in time. I don't think there is. At this point in time in their careers, it was like Benny was just moving into Griselda. I think he was officially in the group in 2017. This came out mid-2018. But this, man, if I was listening to Griselda at this point in time, this is when I would have been like, man, they have something. The chemistry between them 3 is fire. For one, all 3 of them was at the top of their game as far as the rhyme schemes, the lyricism. You know, Benny and Conway's lyricism a little bit better than Westside Gunn's, but I think he did make up for it with his emphatic delivery. I think Conway Conway had the best verse out of the three. He was talking grimy. Then I got to go Benny right after him. I don't think Benny's verse was as good as his verse on Guys Don't Bleed, but he was still in his bag and he had a couple good punches. I like the beat. I don't necessarily like it as much as the first two, but I like the switch of pace where the first two beats are really minimal. This is still, I would probably put this in the minimal category because it had that sample and it was looped up. Nah, I take that back. I don't think I would call this minimal. It was too textured, but I do like the production here. Pretty out of the box and creative sample too. This is Amherst Station.
Hey yo, it's Westside Pootie, and stop copying off my daddy.
Side note, not that anybody asked, but we had to do a tier ranking of Westside Gunn's kids. Westside Pootie, Fly Guy Jr. It's a smooth sample. See, this is what I'm talking about with that outlandish clash of street and high fashion. Like, why you wearing designer doing hand in hand?
Cloaks have had down to kill, where he's running from his with me. The fucking Mr. Wiggins caught me slipping. Damn.
You can knock that song for being how short it is, but I don't mind it. I think with Westside Gunn, especially at this point in career, his lyrical ability is a little bit limited, so I want him in doses. If he don't have nothing to rap about for 2 or 3 verses, I'd much rather him rap for 1, and I like what he brought on this track. He painted a dope portrait flipping between the crack sales on the street and then the prison bars. I feel like vocal samples are a little bit harder to flip as opposed to any other kind of sample because you're gonna have this natural clash between the vocals of the actual song and the vocals on the sample, but the sample is so smooth here. I rock with the beat, I rock with the song despite its length. This is RVD. I love this beat, dog. Somebody stretched it, I like to keep it raw. Nigga fell out one sniff. You can keep the straw. You can keep the straw as wild. Next, suplex the guy get with a few checks, so I like that 2-syllable rhyme scheme right there. When you come home, he said never. I think my heart got stuck. When you come home, he said never. That's grimy, but it reminded me of that bar on Perfect Plex on Roses Are Red and So Is Blood, where he said Sly coming home and never worry. I like that line. Did a 5-star fraud splash hit a brick. That's grimy.
Never show weakness. Think what would Griselda do? What would Griselda do for weak links? Plum-colored minks, plum-colored drinks. Everyone wants to know what Plum thinks.
Dog, I can't stand Keisha Plum. I don't know how y'all niggas let him get this off. This is not good. Plum-colored minks, plum-colored drinks. Don't really know why Plum still speaks. Off that, the beat on this is sick. I think the sick part about that sample is it sounds like it's just a single loop, but Derringer actually chopped this sample up. Those first 2 notes is one part of the sample, and then the rest of it is a separate part of the sample. So for him to have the ear for that and to know that he could chop it up into 2 separate samples and create a loop out of it, I think that's tough. Just like on Dean Malenko with this off-kilter sample, I ain't no like music theorist, but like the piano chord felt so off kilter because in a typical piano chord, it would have ended with that same chord that it started on, but since it didn't, it gives this like ominous, eerie feeling to it. So I rock with that. The simple drums. I think the rapping here was cool from Westside Gunn. He had a couple of good pockets, but he had a couple humorous lines in there that made the verse enjoyable. The nigga fell out one sniff, you can keep the straw. I think he been playing his strengths on this album so far. A production really carries a song like this, but I think it's pretty sick. This is Elizabeth.
I know some niggas only skate on Supreme shit. I know some niggas hit the dope with the remix. I know some no niggas that'll put money on your head. I know niggas when they hit it, bound and hit it dead. I know niggas showing fake love. I know some niggas going around claiming fake blood, fake blood.
I like the I know motif with that verse where every single line started with the I know and then he described a particular image that he sees in the hood.
Wish she got to see me now. Wish baby could see me now.
I don't know how you can't not like Westside Gunn's vocal delivery. I mean, I do know how you cannot like it. It's high pitched and can be annoying.
Mob Duke struggling, no, I can't have that. Balenciaga triple soul sitting on the dad. Catch me in the bushes, go ahead, ski mask black. Booty need a new pair of Gucci's with a stash at.
I'm about to make a comparison that's accurate, but still probably gonna piss some of y'all off because y'all sensitive. Westside Gunn's a lot like the underground version of Travis Scott to me. Maybe not so much now because he's improved as a rapper, talking about 2023, 2022 Westside Gunn. But back in 2018, he had decent rap ability, just like I think for a mainstream rapper, Travis Scott has decent rap ability, but he has dynamic delivery with the vocal inflections and his singing. Neither one of them are technically good at singing, but they just go for it and it works. But with both Westside Gunn and Travis Scott, their biggest skill is how they're able to executively produce an album, create an atmosphere with their production, pick good beats, put the right people on tracks together. Now, obviously, two completely different lanes with Travis Scott and the cloud rap, and I don't know what he's doing now. Hopefully, Utopia is good. But Westside Gunn completely boundary pushing. All the production has been great on this album. This might be the best beat on here so far. It's like splitting hairs because I think everything here was captivated in some way, but the horn sounds so smooth. Good enough performance for Westside Gunn. I like the imagery that he was delivering with his bars. Not the most lyrically proficient verses, neither that first or the second verse. Second verse was a little bit more technical, but I do like the motif in that first verse that I touched on a little bit. The production carries, but another sick song. This is Mean Gene.
I don't fear fact, shit the leads in the Porsche. Take a Campbell bake with the face on the shorts. Greg Greenfields back in Yola.
Sample going crazy.
Make way for the scale breakers. I got the best runners. Every mornings I gave them wake up.
Yeah, you can basically take what I said for Amherst Station and apply it to this song. You got that subtle dance between the vocals of the sample and Westside Gunn's vocals, which makes it a harder sample to flip, but it's a dope flip. He's been 7 for 7 as far as production. The rapping here was whatever. It didn't have any standout lines, and it has the same subject matter as pretty much every other verse from Westside Gunn on this album, minus maybe the last song. It was short enough though where there wasn't too much of a problem. This is Stefflon Don.
Walking over water in my spare time. Red rhyme, shootouts in broad daylight. I better air mine, your brains get airtime. G-Wagon,
Rapping 5-2
daylight.
I like this rapping.
Guts in the full vintage. Kick the door down, got a bitch, you heard shots. From the second floor, Lord, to try to sneak me, jump behind the love seat. I seen his nephew with the 40. Hit him in his forehead.
Yo, what's up with this storytelling?
These new niggas bore me. I ain't sorry. I'm proud of you niggas. That's too more cello Larry.
Hey, no lie, on Coke Rap standards, this is pretty experimental. Maybe not if you compare it with some stuff from 2020 on, like a Mount Marcy, which sounds pretty experimental, or name any Sabu Gold produced song. But for 2018, in the minimalist East Coast influence Coke Rap lane, this is a crazy sample to flip. These weird twangy guitars. I have no idea what that vocal is saying, but it sounds good on the sample. Westside Gunn's pushed the boundary a lot when it comes to production, so if you've heard this album a lot, it probably ain't that special to you. But if you compare this to any project that Westside Gunn came out with prior to this, it captures the same aesthetic, but it sounds completely different. The rapping here was one of the better verses from Westside Gunn. He didn't have like crazy syllable manipulation, but the back-to-back start-stop flow of the 2-syllable rhyme schemes that he was using was fire. And then like halfway through, he got into this storytelling of a shootout in, I think it was his apartment. The braggadocio was on point here. Short, but this is one of the stronger songs on the album when it comes to putting both the production and the verses together. This is Sabu.
Diggle County sun shooting out the porch roof. Praying 5 times a day, I got caught soon. Randy on the porch with his dope spoon. Louis slippers, Louis robes on my mistress. Moose cut swings, how could you miss this? All my niggas stuck and made it Dior trenches.
Man, I was just speaking on Sabu Gold and I was just speaking on being experimental. That's a crazy sample flip. One of my favorite things in hip-hop is when rap samples other rap. It doesn't happen too often, surprisingly, but to take that Busta Rhymes sample, that's a really creative way to flip it, and then Sabu Gold through his signature like spacey and ethereal sounds to give it this even more eerie aesthetic. Westside Gunn's rapping, you can take this and replace this verse with any other verse from him him on the album. Nothing special, but it can carry the beat for a minute. Or that's probably inaccurate. The beat was good enough to carry that rapping for a minute. This is Brippler. This is Brossface Brippler. That's an ignorant song title. That gave me Bocklet Built Bookies vibes. Hey, and that's dope that he had a Busta Rhymes sample and then Busta Rhymes being featured in this song. Another sick sample.
Rocky Calabashes out in Calabasas, tucked in Mackie. Off-white fatigue with the army patch. Go rock like Villanova, gave him cold shoulders. But the neck colder for the tech told him get the leg show for yo.
We like 2/3 into the album, so the content's getting repetitive. But I do respect when he gets into these more lyrical bags. The pocket he's in right here on this verse is pretty sick.
My dog has slit your throat for a brick of coke. He walked in the credit union, then he slipped the note. A new Ferrari ticket price, that's what my kitchen gross. Illegal business, my scale off balance, and my blender broke. Born in that era, in the 80s when the smokers hit the corner and they cop with the baby in the stroller.
Benny
So my
got it,
family
dog.
on drugs, that's what made me whip the soda. If I do pay, this Nike box is not for shoe space. Y'all got due dates for one charge, the time in 2 states. I put
That's a
pictures
dope
of my
flow
kids
around
up
skin right
applying
here.
toothpaste.
Cut coke like I'm chopping beats, they call me Mr. Walt Bay. Master the chef, I'm cooking coke, they call me Salt Bay. Bitches will bag my crack while I fuck them in a short stay.
I don't remember that line. I like that.
You're coke good, but you's a worker, is what you're supposed to say. At a hookah lounge with a waitress serving coke, and I sniff it off the tray.
Is that a thing? What kind of restaurant is that?
Cock, now I'm letting off the K. Developer, molding and shaping the predator that are off the prey. Despite how they kneel and they often pray.
One of the better songs on the album. I'm a little biased because I listen to Dean Malenko and RVD the most. But if I'm being objective, it's probably between this and Elizabeth as the best songs on the album so far. Got some bleeds up there too. But if you compare this to other songs that had 3 verses on it, this is the best 3 verses. I think all 3 guys snapped, and it was a little bit better than the song with Benny and Conway. Busta has a few songs with Westside Gunn and Westside Gunn's full discography, and this might be the best Busta feature. Of course, he had his unique delivery and flow. I like that he slowed it down to fit the pace of this beat, but then I like how he came into Westside Gunn's world with the coke bars. Benny always gonna give you that grimy, vivid street talk, and these are probably the best rhyme schemes and flows from Westside Gunn. Sick vocal sample. This is Spanish Jesus, or really Spanish Jesus.
Esto sí es un peligro. Wow.
Harry Friday ain't heard a guitar he don't like.
I'm stuffing Javo in my pantalones. Mommy nervous for I leave, she holla bendiciones. This just made my rate double like the fucking chorus.
This made my rate double like the chorus. What does that mean?
Condescending fed reaching looking like John Turturro. And I still counted sheep like the Census Bureau. Demonic stallions.
Counting sheep like the Census Bureau, that's a pretty good line. Like calling the masses sheep.
Made my soul comfy, found a new balance. Rather let karma kill you, I don't do malice.
Made my soul comfy, found a New Balance is fire. New Balance shoes, they got comfortable soul. New Balance is very comfortable. But then the balance gave him like peace in his soul, that's fire.
While they getting chubby like Botero drew it.
Whatever that
Mastering my
mean.
craft help me stack the cheese. So I stay away from rats who fold like the back of knees.
Bro, somebody need to hire me as the bar consultant. Because apparently you don't have enough homies in the booth to tell you that line ain't it. I don't understand how you can go from the New Balance line to being like the back of knees in the same verse.
Black Jesus speaking, turn 1 brick to 2. Fiends tweaking, high tops from a Yeezy season. Want it, let them buy it up at Bonnie's. Cause the riot, jury on me, bullets flying. Got my niggas in confinement.
I think that song had some pros and some stuff to like, but overall, I think that was probably the lightest song on the album. I'm not a huge Harry Fraud fan in general. I just don't think he's in the same caliber as Alchemist, Derringer, Sabu Gold. I kind of like the guitars, but just the beat overall was uninteresting compared to all the crazy sample flips and unique loops that have been on this album. Crime Apple is like one of the most bipolar rappers, because I think sometimes he sounds like the best rapper on the planet, i.e. on Cartagena, or I don't even know how to pronounce it, that joint with Big Ghost, Argiente, I think. He had a couple of good punches like that New Balance line, but he can get in such more creative bags when it comes to his flow. So I guess on his standards, middle of the road from a technical perspective, pretty good lines, decent, solid performance. Westside Gunn's verse was whatever, you can copy and paste it, switch it around with almost any verse on here, doesn't make much of a difference. Not an awful song, but lightest one here, this is the Steiners with Elza.
L don't hold punches.
I think Elza definitely had input on this beat. This reminds me of like a beat that would be on his album, The Preface.
My life was like eggs Benedict, creme brulee, and slam today. Tomorrow's lobster macaroni, clam souffle, and those truly wackos swear they got the crown, get the boobies jack. My dogs will smack you up like a Scooby snack. We face a major or cuffin' yo, main squeeze before my plane leaves. I'm so cold, she slurp me up and catch a brain freeze. Then I stroke and smack it in the smoking jacket. Oakland Mac it on some coke and yak shit.
Goodness, bro.
Bring the boom at his mama house, gave him the business. Try to give me 30 counters, fit for a chicken. Chill, I just sold bricks for real. I took a pay cut when I signed my deal.
Man, lyrically, Elza is one of the best rappers I've ever heard. I think the reason he doesn't have a bigger name than he does is at the prime of his career, he just went a really, really long time without dropping a project. It would probably also help if the Preface was actually on streaming. But I mean, the way that he slick talks and puts syllables together is just different. All braggadocio, but he has the word on where he can say whatever he wants and he can rhyme nearly every single syllable while he does it. Multiple different rhyme patterns, the way he weaved in between them was dope. Westside Gunn's verse was better than it's been on the last couple of songs. I still don't think it was his best verse here, and it still sounds pretty interchangeable with the rest, but it was a little bit better. I will say the beat here was pretty good, but not nearly as out of the box as most of these other beats have been. This is Ric Martel with Ric Martel.
George condos in the condo. I can cook coke with my eyes closed.
I like to see it.
Whole brick for 28. Look like we bleached out games. The bitches love the neck clip in the text. Shoot on, slip the best shit.
Yo, that choir is sick. They are definitely drowning out Westside Gunn's voice, but I don't care. The niggas just listen to designers. You don't need to hear that.
Stuck on shells all in your home and humble abode. You don't know opinions, it's like buttholes, man. Never know. I stay clean while I'm out stone. Thought I was.
He playing with like a alliteration right here. It's pretty sick.
The cover was blown. You say like a note on the
top of the rhyme scheme.
Keep the tech, my heat one half for the Cocoa Brothers. I let the coat feel like cocoa butter. This is culture, my folks are smoking butter. I got the game in the field. Out. These ain't Supreme, these sneakers AGs.
Bro, I don't know what it is. Rock Marciano producing his own songs be fine, but him producing Westside Gunn song, that nigga be in a different bag. I love the choir vocal part of the sample. It does drown out both the verses. I'm fine with it drowning out Westside Gunn's verse. I'm actually trying to listen to Rock Marcy rap, but that's the hardest part of the sample to me. I think it go without saying Rock Marcy had the better verse of the two. The way that he floated between these different alliterations on top of the rhyme schemes that he had at the end of the bar. He has some iffy punches in there, whatever that note like a trombone line was, but he had some slick talk in there too. The little butthole line was iffy as well, but I like what he did from a lyricism perspective. This is Westside. These sims sound like train screeching.
Shit impeccable, hanging out the Cornell King. I let the dash and flow. My feet long, Ricky kilos. Coaching my shooters like Rick Pitino. Neck lit up like Reno.
Coaching my shooters like Pitino. Hard. Buffalo is not a big enough city for 10 bodies to be a slow week.
Slide guard, classic, black on me, plastic.
That's a fact.
Tried to rap me, drunk to ashes. Black winds running skater straps on the suede jumpers. Pina colada, I ain't from Yay Bumper.
6 Static Selector beat. I also like the scratching on it. But as much as I love Westside Gunn, in 2018, it was a limit of how many Westside Gunn verses you really wanted to sit through in one project. Westside Gunn, at this point in his career, is just a decent rapper, decent rhyme schemes, but the subject matter is going to get really, really repetitive at some point. It's a little more obvious here because he had 2 verses here compared to just the 1-verse songs or the songs that had features on them. Let's close this thing out with Wrestlemania 20.
I didn't come for jokes, I didn't come for games, I didn't come to play with your names.
Hey yo, face tash him down, we was back and wait. Fiend almost scratched his arm off, he couldn't wait. Rich niggas rocking in for riches. Told my shooter to chill guard, he kept sniffing. New kitchen, same stoves, plain clothes, just trying to chase. Through the 40 by Dr. Burris, cost the number 8.
Yes,
so many chains on, I might suffocate to cut his face the first day. Yeah,
I like that
get out the
suffocate line.
Wait, fuck is this? Ask for a big, he gave his fucking shake. Now he laying in
He rapping right here.
without a fucking face. Gotta send 20 niggas to commissary. If you owe me a stamp, get your mama buried.
Hey, shooting somebody's mama over some prison commissary is wild.
I done come for jokes, I done come for games, I done come to play with you.
Man, we had 5 years to figure out why this song is 6 minutes 30 seconds. I still don't have the answer to that, but it's a pretty sick song. It definitely got carried by the beat. Gospel samples are pretty undefeated, and Ninth Wonder flipped a sick one. The first verse on Westside Gunn, you can just throw it away, but the second verse was pretty good. The feature from Anderson .Paak, did we need to hear that line 50 times? Probably not. Did it sound good sonically? Absolutely. I think overall, there's a reason why this is referred as one of Westside Gunn's best albums. Production-wise, you can make the case for other albums, but this at the very least has to be up there with it. I think up to this point in his career, this sounds different than any other album from Westside Gunn production-wise. There's a unique set of samples, especially some of these weirder vocal samples, like on a song like Stefflon Don or Sabu. I think the highlights of this album, Brossface Brippler, Elizabeth, Gods Don't Bleed are really high. Now, is it flawless? No, I think the issue here is the same issue that he has on a lot of his earlier projects. His rapping is just not good enough to carry a 50-minute long project. I think the features absolutely help with that, but for one, there's that section in the middle of the album where there wasn't any features. And then even with the features, it gets a little bit repetitive from Westside Gunn. But that said, I love the charisma that he gives. I love the dynamic performance from him. And he did have times with that lyricism shine. Overall, I wouldn't necessarily call this a classic, but it's close to it.